Today we're doing a video on a brake line replacement on this 1994 Chevy Caprice Wagon. The problem we have is some of the brake line underneath the car, from right around behind the front tire, right around to the front of the back tire, it's got some really rusty spots and it's not really safe, so we need to change it. It's 1/4 inch brake line, and so what we're going to do is jack the car up real high and take a better look. Okay, under the car looking forward, we have our main brake line coming to the back of the car, but if you notice as we get closer to this turn, well, the brake line gets all rusty, and it continues to be rusty all along the length of the car. You can see it there. It looks pretty bad, and it's pretty bad all the way back to around right in here behind the fuel filter and stuff. Well, it gets clean again, but there's no access really to put a fitting back here. Also, if we go over to the rear end, I'll show you something else. You notice we also get a little rusty up here as we enter the rubber hose for the differential. Anyway, long story short, there's a fitting that we can actually just tie into here. There's our fitting there, so we can actually just back that one out and use a fitting that's on our existing brake line. The only problem is we have to kind of wield it through the side of the car and then down along the side there. Back here at the front, where we have lots of access, we can actually cut the line, bend it back, put our flare fitting here. We'll actually put a union between our new pipe, which we're going to install, and our old line here. Okay, so I've pinch cut the line right there. I've squeezed the front on the car part as best I could, but there's the pinched end of where it's rusty. You want to leave as much good as you can because we're going to be putting a fitting back here, so if we mess up we want to have enough so we can try again. Now I'm pulling out the line. Now it was zip tied up front here, and then back here there's a clip which I was able to pop out. There's another clip here that I can't. The frame and the body are just too close. So what I'll end up doing is just cutting out sections of the brake line. Okay, we pulled all the line out from under the car, and here it is now. It is very rusty in various places, and it was rusty all the way even up to the rear end here, and you can see it's pretty bad stuff. Now there's a fitting on the end of this line that actually goes to a rubber hose that goes to the rear end. So we were able to unscrew that, and here's that fitting here. Now here's the rub. This is all 1/4 inch line, however this fitting, or I should say all the line I have, these fittings are actually a little bit smaller than this one right here. So what I'm going to do is actually reuse this. So my plan is you can see I've got two 5-foot sections of brake line there, and it's a relatively straight run except for in the back of the car. So what I'm going to do is actually cut this off, pull one of these fittings out, put my adjusted fitting in, and kind of shape it to the shape I need. Put a union on the end, take one of the longer pieces and work it around here, and I'll be able to bench assemble this hopefully, and then I'll be able to cut the last one to length here, and we'll actually have it attached somewhere here in the car, so it's not too bad. Okay, so here's what we need to do. We need to take this fitting, put it on this line, which has actually got double flared on each end. So what we need to do is actually cut this here, take this fitting off, put this fitting on, and then put a new flare on it, and that way we can start shaping it the way we want it to. So in order to do that, number one, we actually have to use a piping cutter or a tubing cutter, small one like this one. We need to actually cut off this little flare right here. These work just like a regular piping cutter. You just place them in here, and we're going to put them, we don't want to cut much pipe, so we're going to put it right on the end. You tighten it down. And as you can see, we've got it right on the end here. You take a spin with it, which makes a groove, then you tighten it down some more and do another groove. And you just keep doing this until it comes off. So after turning, tighten, eventually you get to the point where it falls off. So you've got this neat end right here, and you get your little throwaway piece. Once you've got that cut, you can, some cutters have a reamer in them, but you just want to come in there and kind of clean out the inside a little bit if you can, just to get any of the crud out. So now it's relatively clean inside. Now let's take this fitting off since we don't need it, put the fitting that we want on, so we have it, and now we need to put a flare on this end. Our flare kit comes with a bunch of neat things here. We've got these little flare tool bits that is pretty much what makes this a double flare kit. We've got our little holder, and we also have our little clamp, and let me show you how these work. We'll take our holder, since we'll need this, and since we're using 1/4 inch tubing, we'll take our 1/4 inch adapter, and of course we'll need our little press here. But per the instructions, what we want to do is you want to take your 1/4 inch hose, or pipe or tube or whatever, put it into the 1/4 inch hole, and the amount you want hanging out is the same as the height of the adapter there, in that first row. So you want to line those up like so, so that they're level, and then you want to clamp her right down tight. So that's the right height. Now I'm going to use both of these and clamp this down until it will not clamp anymore. So we have our clamp, we have our 1/4 inch. You're going to take your adapter, place it right in the middle here, and what we're going to do essentially is there's a little rounded point on the inside of this. I can't see if you can tell it, but you put this part in here, and that's going to keep the tube from getting collapsed. We're going to put our vise on it and squeeze like this. So we want to tighten this down a little bit. So what we're essentially doing, and make sure it's all nice and square, is what we're doing is we're actually going to take this black piece and squish it on our pipe, and it's going to make the whole end balloon out. And so I'm going to clamp that down, and when we're done I'll show you. So she's flat. Back that out. Pull my adapter out. And it might come out a little frisky. Now if you look, you see we've got a very squished pipe. It's flat almost. This is what I'd call a bubble flare almost. It's a little bubbly. It's not like a standard flare. It's actually much better than that. It's a bubble flare. But what we need to do now is actually make that go inward a little bit. So once we pull our adapter out, we actually come back with our press again. We line it over the hole and we're going to squish it flat. So we get everything lined up again. Nice and center. Like so. And now what we're going to do is squish her so she makes a nice flare ending. And you just do it tight. Once you're done, back off the little press. Release the ends of our clamp here because we don't need them anymore. So we open that up. We take our line out, and you can see we've got our nice ending. If we are in focus, you can see it like that, and it looks just like our professional end that a machine did somewhere in some country. So now we have our regular fitting that we need on the end here. We have this regular one that'll fit the rest of our unions. So now we just need to form this into shape and we'll be on our way, at least on getting the brake line put in. Okay, kind of show you where I'm at right now. I took one of my 1-foot pieces and kind of custom bent it. So we actually come out of the rear end hose connector. And actually it's just a foot, so I made it so that it comes out. And right above the muffler is where my joint is for one of the 5-footers here. So there's the union and the connector between the two. And this one's pretty easy because it just comes around, bends at a 90 degree, and essentially comes out the bottom of the car here. So what we have to do is align to the frame a little bit, run along the edge all the way to the front, and we'll need another piece. We'll have a union midway here, and then we'll have to custom cut our last piece, and we'll have to put a flare on that bit of hose that's going to be up here. Sorry that was so fast, but we're done. What I've done is I've taken my good line where it was. I put a flare and a fitting on this end here and a union. Here's the shortest piece, or the adjustable piece. It's actually a 5-footer that I cut down. So it's fitting here, and I bent it underneath the frame. And there's a parking brake cable. Here's my new brake line that comes back around. And then another union right here. This is a full 5-foot piece right here. So this is the another union, and that goes all the way up back to one I showed you before. So what's up next is we now have to bleed the system. Okay, before we actually re-bleed the system, we're actually going to make sure we need brake fluid. So here's my reservoir. These little pistons were down, so we had actually dropped quite a bit of fluid, and I expected that. So I put them up, wiped this down. That fluid is not great looking. In fact, brake fluid is usually clear. So what we're going to do is take a turkey baster, which you can get at the dollar store. We're going to draw all that fluid out down to the base, and then we're going to fill it with new, and then we're going to put a vacuum pump on the system, and we're actually going to suck, hopefully, this brake fluid through those empty brake lines. And there's our little bleeder right there. And so what we're going to do is put a vacuum on it, and then we're going to take our little, I think it's a 5/16 wrench, and turn the bleeder screw and keep pumping the vacuum pump and hopefully pull all the air out until we actually get fluid into that little container again. Then we'll stop, switch to the other side, pull until once again we get nothing but fluid, and then we're going to power or pressure bleed it by having someone pump the brake pedal. And we're done. I bled the brakes. If you've ever bled brakes before, it's very easy. Showed you a little bit of vacuum pump. Then you have somebody else pump the pedal while you bleed the brakes as well. Everything came out peachy. Cleaned out the brake fluid, and now the car is in the driveway, and we're all done here.